Hello, beautiful humans. I'm Elena Tully. I'm a somatic therapist, a mother of three, a wife of one, an educator, and a guide to the human experience. Each episode will explore tools, stories, integrated practices that can help you reset or reconnect and step into that deeper sense of clarity with more joy and a sense of your impact or purpose. We do not need more hustle. We need more heart, more presence, more alignment. Welcome to the Unboxable podcast. Hello and welcome.
I am so happy to be with you, Elena. It's been so much fun to get a little sense of who you are in the green room and feel this strong connection to you thousands of miles away, obviously meaning nothing in terms of how
Absolutely
powerful human connection can be.
Absolutely true. So we've just had an awesome chat, and then I was like, oh my gosh, we better record this because it's too much fun to miss, like for everybody listening to miss out. So I want to give you a huge, warm welcome. I am on the land of the Gadigal people. I say that it's the saltwater people. We're not always sure of the land that we're on here in Australia, but I always like to start with saying I'm going to invite you to feel deeply and tread lightly on the land where you are, where you find yourself.
Yeah, and the indigenous people where I am were many. So yeah, we too tend to acknowledge that these days, which is a really powerful thing to do. Certainly necessary and insufficient, but it's something.
Yeah, it's nice to acknowledge the ancestors. And we were just talking about ancestry, actually. So the first question I want to ask you, and I always ask this first, is who are you, where are you, and what do you love to do? And I ask that because it allows you to introduce yourself from your heart and mind and see what comes out.
So who I am, it could be answered in a host of ways. I would define myself primarily as a husband and a father. Those are probably my biggest designations, and that's the place where if triage comes into play, that those are the places where my energy goes, and of course towards my parents as well. I'm also a son of very strong, but octogenarian parents.
Wow.
And I've got two boys, a 16 and a 20-year-old. And one of the older of whom is in college. My wife and I have been together for a little over 22 years. Met when we were just 8 years old. I kind of go into that story of, our connection and just how unlikely and unusual it is. And
Congratulations.
how gratifying it's been. Yeah, it's just been the greatest thing in my life. Professionally, I'm a psychologist, licensed in the state of California. I see men primarily. I didn't know I would see men. They're the ones who've been knocking on my door, generally men of Silicon Valley, companies that you're familiar with, places like, Facebook, Google, Apple.
So needed
Netflix,
what you're doing
like
in those places. That's amazing.
Yeah, and so I do that. And I also am a resiliency expert. So I've been hired by various companies. Oh, nice mug.
So he's just talking about my Star Wars mug, and what's interesting is I worked on one of the Star Wars films because two of them actually were shot in Australia, in Sydney.
That's amazing. Which ones did you work on?
I worked on episode 2. Don't hate me.
She said what she says with some hesitation.
Yeah, because let's cast any aspersions.
Clone Wars.
Yeah, right. So it was an amazing experience, and I got to meet very briefly all the famous people and have lunch with George Lucas and all of that, and it was fantastic. I worked for about 8 weeks, so I didn't get a credit. Dad, you need to be on it for 3 months for a credit. But I was a personal assistant at the very beginning with Trisha Biggar, the costume designer. It was amazing. And then right at the end, I helped to organize the wrap party. So it was an incredible experience.
That's super cool. Well, actually, over my right shoulder, there's a small pine box that contains the remains of, I should say, the cremated remains of my cat, Yoda, who was obviously named after the fellow from Dagobah, who was the incredible mentor of Luke. And one of the things that's true about me is, another part of who I am is certainly I'm a massive, massive Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm also a big fan of mentorship, both receiving it and providing it. So Yoda was the perfect archetype. Um, so yeah, and both of my children have Ben in their name, not after Ben Kenobi, but rather Grandpa Ben, after
that's
whom
nice.
who preceded them. Sadly, in death, he died just a couple of years before they were born, so they wouldn't
That's
get to
tough,
meet me.
isn't it?
It was a
It's
bit
so
tough.
tough
Yeah,
when
Grandpa
you're
Ben was the
like,
greatest.
yeah, I had a
But I
grandfather
did
like that
something
too.
really, I had a moment of inspiration while Grandpa
Yeah.
was alive in around 1997, I want to say. I realized that the rate I was going, I wasn't going to be married, let alone have children
Mm.
anytime too soon. And I
Mm.
needed to know that my children would know who Grandpa Ben
Mm.
was.
That's
And so
cool.
started doing video biographies of him. So my
Oh my
children have
gosh,
seen
well
him and his
done.
mannerisms, and not just him giving a toast at a wedding, but rather
Proper.
him in his real form talking about stories and conveying his values. And this
Wow,
is
that's
something I talk about
amazing.
quite extensively in my book. But I guess back to the who am I would say I'm a
Yes.
connector. I
Yes.
Whether it's connecting with people like I'm connecting with you, or connecting people who have not yet met, almost like a matchmaker.
I do that
Um,
too.
that's awesome.
Yeah, the best.
So yeah, for about 4 years, I created a resiliency program at Facebook. It was then called Facebook, for
Mm.
their counterterrorism and child safety teams, also known as their trust and
Oh,
safety department.
wow.
It went international, and subsequently, I've been doing that kind of work with the the safety team over at DigitalOcean. I've been working with them for about 7 years. Love doing that. I'm a keynote speaker. I am also a certified executive coach and a big podcaster. I just did my 250th episode. And
That's so exciting.
thank
So
you.
exciting. Any
And
guests?
some fabulous. We may talk. We may talk.
Yes.
Yeah, the podcast itself has been blessed with some really, really fun
Congratulations.
guests.
That's
Thank
really
you.
an achievement.
Thank you. And given a couple TEDx talks on topics
Yeah,
that really matter
cool.
to me, on emotions as they relate to men in particular, and friendship in adulthood. Um, and most recently, I've become an author of a book that recently won an award. I was very pleased with it, and that's kind of what brought us
Mm.
together.
Yes.
But so who I am, I'm those things, as well as I'm also a massive pet lover, as you've probably inferred.
Oh,
I have
cool.
an Australian Labradoodle,
Oh,
which is
beautiful.
just he's a wonderful dog, and two cats. And let's see, I'm a real hardcore traveler. I've
Mm.
lived in Japan for 3 years and learned how to speak the language, and I still dream
Oh,
in
that's cool.
Japanese from time to time and use the language whenever I can. Um, Love connecting with various cultures, and I've spent time in other uh, nations, namely Spain and Guatemala,
Mm.
extensively, and then just for short trips to other places. Um, but I think the next question, where I am, I
Oh,
am
yeah.
in the I am in the heart of Silicon Valley. As you and I were talking, I remember Apple before it was Apple. It was orchards, and not apple orchards, but
Yeah.
other types. And so I was raised here. I never thought I would come back here after being married, but my wife and I both have parents here, and we decided we
Right.
wanted to be close to the parents.
Yeah,
So
which makes
that was a
sense.
good choice.
Just a quick pause here. If what we're talking about on Unboxable feels like it's speaking directly to you, especially if you're ready to move beyond the daily hustle toward a deeper alignment, I'd love to invite you into the Lion Life Method. It's my ongoing support system for women who want real life somatic tools to stay resource centered and deeply connected. It's based on years and years of personal experience and training, and also brings in the help of other experts in all kinds of amazing fields. Inside it, you'll find live monthly resets and a beautiful, intimate community, and all the support you need to walk your path with confidence. To learn more and to join us, just head over to elenaturley.com or find the link in the show notes. Now let's get back into it.
And the third
What do you
question.
love to do?
And what do I love to do? I've already spoken to some of those things,
You have
but I
some
would
of
say
them.
that one of my very favorite, I'm a music head, hardcore into music. I'm a cinephile. If I could, and if I could do two things or three things full time, I'd travel. I'm a major foodie. I just cannot eat enough amazing stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
and I really, really care about it. And
Right.
I would probably also be a worldwide traveler. So those would, if I could somehow do that, those are the three things that I
Mm.
love doing the most when I'm not on the clock. But of course, spending time with my son, spending time with my wife,
Of
who I
course.
absolutely adore being with, and yeah, I'd say that is those are some of the things I love. Connection and connecting with
Mm.
people, which caused me to write this book,
I was
is
going
a
to
big
say,
part
tell
of
me you
what I
read my
love.
mind. Tell me the story of the book.
It's so great that you asked that. If you're familiar with one of the most important voices in modern psychology, he's an existentialist by the name of Irvin Yalom. He was a professor of psychiatry at Stanford. He said that basically every book he ever wrote bit him in the ass. And I had been waiting for years for a book to bite me in the ass. And I'd started a few, but I never finished them. And finally, one clamped on me like a
That's
pit
amazing.
bull. And it was the byproduct of well over 100 episodes of interviewing, world class thought leaders who kept on talking about this word called connection. And then being a psychologist for about 20,000 hours with individuals and couples, and this word called connection
Mm.
just kept showing up. And I looked up the definition for connection in the dictionary, and it's rather lackluster. It's like two train cars connecting to each other. And if you even look in
Mm.
the American Psychological Association's definition of connection, it's profoundly insufficient.
Right.
So what I wanted to do was define the word connection.
Yeah.
I wanted to go beyond the typical places that books on connections had gone before me.
Yes.
The previous books had talked about connecting with your spouse or connecting with your children or connecting with your clients. There's so much more to it. There are four basic ways that we humans connect.
Hmm.
That after discussing it with very, very smart people, uh,
Yes.
we came up with four. We connect, if you can imagine, four concentric circles
Yes.
at the nucleus of the or even imagining it an archery target at
Yeah.
the bullseye. It's self.
Yeah.
How do we
That's
connect
right.
with ourself? Not a selfish thing,
Preach.
not a narcissistic thing. Yeah,
Preach.
and it informs all the other connections. And then as we go outward in these
Hmm.
concentric circles, how do we connect to others? Others could
Hmm.
be my wife, of course. It could be my clients. It could be my friends. Could be
Hmm.
my children. Could be my pets. I believe that animals, we have so much evidence that the animals
Mm.
in our life provide us with healings. They are others. Some people just see them as its,
Interesting. Mm.
but I chose to frame them as others in the book. The
Yes.
third level is connecting with the world. It could be how we connect to art, nature, our work,
Beautiful.
our ancestry. You were talking
Yes.
about the ancestry of the saltwater people. Maya Angelou once said, "If you don't know where you're from, you can't really know where you're going."
I love that
And I
quote.
think that's a great. So connecting with ancestry is a big part of what that is.
Hmm.
And the fourth is something greater. Now, for the religious,
Yes.
that might include going to place of worship and their connection with God. For the most hardcore Orthodox atheist,
Mm.
they might go to the outback and say, what? They might go to someplace like the Grand Canyon and have
Yeah.
an awestruck experience. And they might
Mm.
feel themselves experiencing awe, AWE. And one of the
Yeah.
things that we've been researching quite extensively in the field of psychology has been
Yeah.
awe. And what we found is
Beautiful.
that we are far less self absorbed, we're far
Mm.
more other centric, which is nice.
Yes.
And strangers are more likely to hug strangers in the face of being
Yes.
in a state of awe.
That is
So,
true. It is
and
100% true. I flew over Antarctica and the vibe in the plane completely changed when we were over the ice. It was a flight over Antarctica. That was the whole purpose of the flight. And it was absolutely palpable. The moment we left the ore place, everything went back to their seats, and they
Isn't
like,
that
I've been
interesting?
in that experiment. Yeah, it's
So
fascinating.
here's we're gonna get geeky for a second
Okay.
because we can.
I love it.
Imagine that you could put somebody on psilocybin,
Yeah.
the psychoactive chemical
Yep.
in magic mushrooms, which has been showing some promise for
Yeah.
certain treatment
Mm.
for certain forms of therapy and psychedelic studies. What if you put that person under some type of neuroimaging and you put another person who is experiencing
Mm.
awe under
Oh,
neuroimaging?
that's
The same
interesting.
receptors are hit in each experience.
Totally makes sense to me.
Isn't that amazing? So
Totally
you
makes
don't
sense to
even
me.
need, in this case, in the United States, in most places, such, psilocybin is illegal in most places.
Right.
So you don't need an exogenous element like the
No.
magic mushroom. You can experience awe at any point. I'm looking outside. I know it's midday Tuesday
Yeah.
in Australia, and
Yeah.
I'm looking out here. It's evening here, and we have a full moon. I'm
Oh,
looking outside my window.
beautiful.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
There was a
And
gorgeous moon here last night too. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we can experience awe when we see a sunset. We can experience it when we see the moon. To borrow a concept from Abraham Joshua Heschel, who talked about radical amazement. We can be radically
Nice.
amazed at any time. My
Yeah.
colleague, Dr. Michael Amster, who talks about microdosing awe, said that basically,
Beautiful.
why not when you're making pancakes, look at it going from liquid to solid, and
I
and,
love
and have an
that.
awestruck moment. So there are many
Yes.
moments I can look into my dog's eyes, I can look into my wife's eyes and say, "Wow, how did I get her?" Like,
Yes.
and be awestruck at any
That's
moment.
beautiful. It makes me think about being present, present to what's occurring.
Exactly.
It's that similar. And actually, I have a book recommendation for you written by a very well-respected writer and journalist in Australia, Julia Baird. She lives down the road
Mm.
from me. And she wrote a book called Phosphorescence. And it's very much about a similar thing that you're talking about. And she discovered it through her, I guess, her survival through cancer. And so she's just had this, it's a beautiful book just of essays. And she swims in the ocean every day, and she
Ah,
talks about various moments in her life. It's you would love it. So I will link that up in the show notes as
I
well.
already do.
And Tim Ferriss, his 4 Hour Work Week book, right? The famous book that he wrote that sort of rocketed him into being well known. And after his talk at Stanford, I believe, actually. So he talks about excitement. His way of putting it is to say that we don't lack all these various things. We lack excitement for what we're doing, which is kind of a little bit of a to the side of what you're saying. But I can't believe you're talking about this stuff really because, I feel like we're connected. It's no mistake. For
Yeah,
many years now, in the business that I do, which has been, an evolving practice, I have talked about connection within and with others. That's been the absolute foundation of my approach from the beginning of me doing it. So I wholeheartedly agree. And the language that you're using is fascinating because I've struggled a little bit over time to define in language that is accessible in just a few words, this process. And what I'd like to challenge you with, and it's probably not a challenge, but I would like to ask you is talk to me about that in your day to day. Give me your day to day of connecting with self and others and world, art, nature, ancestry, and something greater and awe. Give me that in real practical examples.
absolutely. Well, I'm just going to tell you, I am a work in progress. Ask my wife.
Always, right?
That old, just hackneyed idea of, don't be we're called human beings, not human doings. But
Doesn't work
I
anymore.
can be. I mean, what's that?
It doesn't work anymore anyway.
For sure. I mean, it's a well intended, but it's actually rather true in my case. I mean, I'm often doing, and I need to
Mm,
often pull myself aside and say, bro,
yeah. Yeah.
slow down, maybe
Same.
take a moment.
Mm,
And one of the things that I do experience though, in the midst of my doing,
mm.
is flow. This concept that
Yeah.
Mihai Csikszentmihalyi studied.
I've
Yeah,
got
so
the
you
book
got the book over there
right in
somewhere.
front of me. Yeah,
It's a
yeah, yeah.
fabulous
I
book,
don't know how you
and
say that surname, but I love the book. Yeah.
it's cheek sent me high, like the cheek sent
Yeah,
me
Chick sent
high.
me high. Yay.
Isn't that
Thank
wild?
you.
Yeah. And I
Thank
had to
you.
cite him all the time in my dissertation. He's great.
It's beautiful.
But this idea of being so deeply immersed can be reduce anxiety, reduce depression, increase happiness,
Right.
and so so I try to experience as much flow as I can in my life,
Mm.
whether it hits all of the bases. It hits myself, it hits
Mm.
others, it hits the world, and it goes beyond. So flow can be one of the great ways of feeling truly connected when we feel
Mm.
challenged appropriately, so challenged that we are immersed in a thing where we're
Mm.
doing it for maybe an hour and it feels like 20 minutes have gone by. Like you and I
I
are going
love
to be
that
talking
feeling.
for just an hour and it will have felt like 15 minutes.
Yeah, I will too.
And because you and I are just vibing,
Yeah.
and we're it's fun, it's challenging,
Fun.
it's fabulous. Time versus when we do something for 15 minutes and it feels like 3 hours. I'm sure you've experienced that as well. Just the absolutely mind-numbingly boring or painful meeting that we sometimes have to sit through as well.
And sometimes
So
one leads to another, like sometimes we have to do the tough bits and then we get
that's
to
right.
do we have to and we get to. Like sometimes that's how it is, right?
That's true as well. So what connects two different people may be similar in some areas, but I can virtually guarantee that no two people have the same formula for connection as a big connect in terms of the four ways.
Yeah.
So you and I could geek out and talk about ways that we feel most connected to self, others, the world, and beyond.
Yeah.
Or something greater. And then there'd be places where you would describe something and I'd say, wow. And I describe something and say, really? And
Yes.
and neither
True.
one of us would really necessarily go there, but we can be stoked for the other person
And
because
music's
it's
like that.
music.
Like I might
Absolutely like
totally
that.
love and like have to dance to something that you just can barely even listen to, like that's like the
For
music of
sure.
connection.
For sure. But one thing we must agree on, I hope, is Sia, who is one of the all-time, and I'm pandering to my Aussie crowd here, but an Akadaka, because please, I mean,
I mean, there are a couple of the greats for sure.
it's funny.
There's no
Back in
denying.
Black was, I mean, I thought when Highway to Hell happened and Bon Scott was gone, I was fair. I mean, I remember the first time I heard Highway to Hell, I was like, am I listening to?
Tragedy.
I was just a little boy. And
Yeah.
then Bon Scott dies, and then I think this band's never gonna come back, and then they come back in Black.
Which is
And
amazing. Yeah.
it was, it was the soundtrack of my youth.
Yeah.
And who would have thought? But one of the definitions for the working definition. So the first time you hear Hell's Bells, for me anyway, and then you hear Angus Young on the guitar, and I'm just like, oh my God, what's going on? So the definition of connection that I came up with 10 other licensed mental health practitioners was, it took about a page to describe it, but it's life force, almost like the force. It's vitality. It's what truly brings you alive. And it when you have it. And there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. Like one of the things I talk about in the book is my strange relationship with the music of a man by the name of George Michael, who everybody would laugh. You see,
Have you
laugh
watched the
when you say that
documentary
name.
though? Have you watched
so good.
Isn't it
And
so good?
Yeah. So good. So I adored him, his music, his voice, the whole thing.
Bless him.
There was one small problem. At my high school, we were not allowed to say that. And if you did, you would be called something misogynistic or homophobic.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I listened to him with the windows rolled up.
Like in secret.
Here I am, a straight, totally.
God.
So I listened to him with the windows rolled up. And so one of the things I talk about in my book is there is no such thing as a guilty pleasure as long as you're not hurting anybody or yourself.
Right.
And so if George Michael brings me alive, and so I, somewhere in my 20s, finally decided to roll down my windows and just blast.
Loud and proud, baby.
Loud and proud. There was Freedom 90, which is this, the song. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I won't let you down.
It's a great song.
So good. So like I remember hearing that for the first time, and it was like there was no question. No one could clown on this man anymore.
Mm.
Like it was called Listen Without Prejudice, and it brought me
Nice.
so alive. And I will die on this hill, and everybody I will be clowned on. But for me, George Michael is unequivocally the best voice ever for me.
Oh,
For
he's
me,
got a beautiful
I mean,
voice. Yeah.
beautiful voice. You know, Jesus to a child. I mean, here I am, a Jewish guy, listening to Jesus to a child, thinking this is the greatest thing I've ever heard. He's
Awesome.
so good. I describe in the book the going to his concert, being the only straight guy who was there without a girlfriend, and all of the other males that I could identify were gay males. So very, I wear it proud, loud and proud.
Mm.
I've always been, a big advocate for the gay community. I did this thing called the AIDS ride 3 years in a row, and they were playing George Michael on it. It was this bike ride, and it made me
That
so
would have been
happy.
fun. Oh my
Beyond, it's
gosh.
like a party on wheels for seven
So
days from
I
San
grew
Francisco
up
to Los Angeles.
in the late 80s, in Sydney, and 1989 in Sydney was called the Summer of Love, and there's a huge gay dance scene here. And the first clubs I went to, like in 87, when I was very young, we would go dancing at the gay clubs in Sydney because young women, we felt very safe there. I mean, the best music was there and it was super safe for us, and they were the funnest parties. So like we just had this amazing, I didn't even really understand like that the gay scene was anything different or to be ashamed of or to feel like there wasn't, to my, in my circle, of course there was, but in my circle, there was no persecution. There was no, there was no gay hating. We were just in it. And it was an amazing, amazing scene to grow up in. And then later,
I,
we realized the darker side of that happening all around us, of course. But at the time, it was beautiful. It was being really embraced. Mardi
I
Gras
went.
here is huge and all that. So,
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you say it, Elena, because growing up, I remember going through this period where, people would throw homophobic slurs at other guys. That was like a real way of quieting and shaming
oh
them.
yeah, still,
And then
still,
I
yeah.
and then I went to the section of San Francisco. I was living about 50 miles from there. The Castro is what it's called, and it was the most joyous place I'd ever been. It was the most celebratory place I'd ever been. It had the best food. Everything was fabulous. And then I befriended just an entire community of gay men, and they were totally the most accepting. The thing I particularly loved about them as a young man was they had been so contemplative and introspective. They had had the dark night of the soul. Many of them, their
Mhm.
families didn't really accept them or eventually come around. But the
Yeah.
quality of the conversations, as well
Yes.
as the quality of the dance party and everything else,
Mhm.
it was totally enlightening. Is all I can tell
Yeah.
you. I was so honored to be accepted as I
It's
was,
beautiful. Yeah.
and they knew where I stood in terms of like who I was going for. They were very respectful, and
It's great.
many of them became the dearest friends. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
all
we're
I can tell you
fortunate
is
that we've been around it, really. Like I just, because I'm a straighty 180 in that direction, but I've always loved in completely surrounding myself with a bunch of difference, and part of
totally
the thing about what you're talking about is like when you are connected in yourself, you are better able to connect with others. There is a huge interrelationship between the quality of your connection with yourself and the quality of your connection with others. And when you were talking just then about, I guess you were saying something about presence and flow. I was thinking a lot about my black belt grading. I had a black belt grading when I was 50 and it was
Wait,
hard.
you had a black belt grading when you were 50.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It was amazing. So I'd started in my early 20s. I'm sorry, I go on and on about this all the time because it's a
Yeah.
huge deal. So I started in my 20s. I studied something called Hapkido, which is a Korean martial art, full comprehensive martial art. And I did about 5 years. I got to nearly black belt. Personal life took over. I wasn't ready to be a black belt. 20 years having kids, doing various other things. Then came back, moved to an area where I could study Hapkido again. So I went back to it. And then it took me another probably maybe 4 years to get to black belt from where I was. And it was an incredible experience. But at the end of that day, where I thought that I had been tested on technique and my ability to defend myself and my weaponry and my, and the falling and all the various things that we do. The end of that day, I realized it wasn't a test of any of those things. It was a test of focus and presence. It was a test of flow. And there was only probably, I reckon, maybe a 3-minute break during that. It was like a 4 or 5 hour grading. It's really full on. And for 3 minutes, I zoned out and lost focus. And when I came back from that zoning out moment, I made, a pretty solid mistake at the grade, probably the only solid mistake. And that was really interesting, right? But I realized later that that flow and presence was actually what it was a test of. It was, can you be in the moment for that length of time, Because it's not always that easy to do in terms of endurance and, just brain power and energy. And like, it was a really amazing experience.
That's just lovely.
Yeah,
so you
cool.
know firsthand, and I know everybody does know firsthand what flow feels like, but the ability to actually label it as such is useful, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And that, the force, like you were talking, I mean, that's what we're doing in martial arts. We're talking a lot about how do we move energy around our body? How do we move energy between us and other people? Maybe not in those words. Everyone uses different words, but it's similar, right? It's the language that differs.
100%. Yeah. And finding that, I would say that within connection, within flow,
Yeah.
within finding your communities of choice is authenticity. And one of the things we know about authenticity is that if I was to say something that was positively, patently false to you, I would experience cognitive dissonance. I would experience a feeling of like, wait, that's not really true. It's kind of like walking around with a rock in my shoe. Or one of the things we also know is, what's that?
It's unbearable. Something's not right, sort of feeling.
It's not comfortable for me to be inauthentic. And turns out that for many people, when they are benching a large amount of weight and they say something that is true while they're trying to bench that weight, they will be able to exert more energy. And when they say something that is not true, patently false, they will be somewhat weaker.
That is fascinating because I've always said it takes a lot of energy not to be yourself, not to be true to yourself. Because you got to shield, you got to mask, you got to like put in some weird smoke and mirror system. And it takes a lot to do that.
It requires RAM space and it's not helpful. Now there are some people who can do it.
Sure.
But most of us do not succeed when we are inauthentic in that way. Of course, sometimes you have to be inauthentic to some extent, saying, you're a guest at someone's house and you say, it's how do you like the food? It's delicious. I mean, obviously you got to suck it up.
We're going to use that discernment. Yeah, for sure.
That discernment, right. And that's not going to sink anybody's ship. But going through life, pretending we are someone who we are not. Let's say you're the child of an accountant and you're told you must be an accountant, but you really don't want to be an accountant. You want to be a musician or an artist or a therapist as you are. And you are basically walking around posing as a thing that you're not. You will not really be walking through life with the kind of strength and energy and flow and all of the connected to self, others in the world. And I mean, everything will be impaired. It'll be as if you're walking through life having the world's worst head cold all the time. When you have a bad head cold, how well can you connect with another, let alone yourself?
Because yes, it's a human need. It's a human need to be who we are for the most part, right? And for that to matter as well.
That's right. And what you and I both do as therapists is hopefully help people uncover where they are and help them reveal to themselves their birthright. And that is they get to be that.
Yeah.
As long as they're not hurting anybody else, or let alone themselves, ideally.
And take away the roadblocks to that they may have developed over time to survive, right?
100%. And that is one of the tragedies that happens throughout time We
Mm.
get mirrored improperly. We also have a whole host of onboard bugs in our brains that have helped us
Mm.
to survive throughout the millennia,
Of
such as the
course.
negativity bias, such as various
Yes.
cognitive biases, such as the
Yes.
spotlight effect, where we believe that everybody's looking at us much more carefully than they actually are. They're
Mm.
actually spending time thinking about themselves. And here we are limiting our lives because we were wondering if we'll look like fools. I came to learn that the reason I was able to learn to speak Japanese was
Yeah.
because I was willing to look like an idiot for a long period of time. And I think that a lot of people have difficulty with that. And I know that I've had difficulty looking like a fool. I talk about it in my own book. I was
Yeah.
not willing to ride around on a bicycle on my college campus. Why? And it's so stupid as I look back. I mean,
Yeah.
4 years of not riding a bicycle because I was fearful that I'd look silly on a
Oh my
bicycle.
gosh, I relate so many. I could tell you a million stories like that. I know what you mean. It's
But what a
crazy,
waste of
right?
life force.
Yes, but and yet so many of us do that and continue
Yes, so
to
many
do
of us do
that,
that.
in our lives. This is one of the biggest things that comes up in practice, isn't it? People feeling like they have to change themselves or appear different or put themselves in a box too small in order to survive life, and sometimes
Absolutely.
I really wonder. So if I were to ask you, say I'm one of those people and I say, where do I start? What's the first step? Like if I know that I'm disconnected, if I know that I'm not being truly myself, where do I start?
One of the things I would want to ask of you is what are the things that you absolutely love doing and how
Mm.
often are you doing those things? Because oftentimes there's a chasm between how often we're doing them and how
Yeah.
often we really should be doing them.
Hmm.
Another thing is identifying things that we've not yet tried. My
Oh, that's
mother
nice.
has a basic principle called "try it, you'll like it." Uh, it's a classic aphorism for a Jewish
That's
mom.
great.
But or try it, you might like it. I think it's more accurate. But many of us fail to try new things, go to new
Yeah.
places,
Yeah.
try out new music. I believed for a long period of time that I was not into bluegrass music. And my wife took me
Mhm.
to see a band with a name that I found most distasteful, Leftover Salmon. They kicked ass. They were incredible. I could not believe how into it I was.
Wow.
And I nearly said, no, babe, I'm not really into the whole
Yeah.
bluegrass thing. It's just not.
I got a story like that too. So I went to see the Foo Fighters Skin and Bones
Oh, I
tour at Sydney Opera
love
House.
fighters.
So I got to show you something now. So podcast listeners, hang on, I'm going to describe this. Okay. So I went to the Opera House with a friend and I was like, Foo Fighters are really not my thing. And then I saw this incredible performance at the Opera House. And then
There's Dave Grohl.
with me. So
What?
So I
You're
just showed a
kidding me.
photo of no kidding. And again, I'm sorry, listeners, I do talk about this from time to time.
I
But
would
what
talk
this
about it every day and probably lead with
so
that.
so the thing is, I went to this show thinking I'm really not gonna like this show. It's the Foo Fighters, they're really mainstream. Knew nothing about them. And so I go to this show, I'm completely smitten with the whole experience, with the whole band. And I was like, that guy, Dave Grohl, he's got something incredible. I want to meet that guy. And I set this like full on intention. I reckon I like did some magic connection ritual in
Mm-hmm.
my brain with him in the Opera House. Anyway, years later, I won a competition to meet them. Like it was crazy. I had to like it was super crazy. And then I did meet them and I met Taylor Hawkins and I mean it was weird. Like it was
Hawkins.
in a room at the bottom of a stadium for about 3 minutes with a Make-A-Wish kid. And like it was just so weird. And but I met them and we laughed and I got a photo and it was an incredible experience. And people like him change a room. So if we're going to talk about connection, I mean, there are certain people who have a way of completely changing the atmosphere, and there's not that many that I've met quite a few people who change the atmosphere, but I never met one like Dave Grohl where I actually just fell apart. Like I was talking incessantly. I was a complete idiot. Most of the time when I've met really amazing people, I've held it together. With him, I did not hold it together. His
I
was
would not
big.
either. Yeah, I would. I mean, I've been such a fan of Dave Grohl ever since he was the drummer for Nirvana. I
I know,
remember
and
watching him.
amazing.
He looked like a Muppet. He was hitting it so
Yes.
hard. And then I see him playing guitar after Kurt Cobain tragically
Oh,
suicided, and then Taylor Hawkins, what a tragedy and what a brilliant man.
It was
To bring it full
awful.
circle, I don't know if you saw this, but when Foo Fighters were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Taylor
Mm.
Hawkins used his 30 seconds on the microphone saying, George Michael must be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of
Oh,
Fame.
that's so beautiful.
And then he died. And then
Oh, so
shortly
sad.
after, George Michael was inducted into the Hall of Fame. I
That
thought
is
that was so
awesome.
brilliant. What a great use of his time. But yeah,
That's
I mean
beautiful.
Taylor Hawkins. I mean, when I think of like the greatest drummers of all time, he's on that
Incredible.
list. But yeah,
Incredible.
and you would have to know that Dave
And
Grohl being
Questlove from The
a
Roots, of
Questlove, forget
course.
about it. Incredible.
I
I'm
just
glad.
saw them in Sydney.
Oh
It
no
was
way!
astounding. It
You
was one
saw
of the
the
best
Roots?
concerts I've ever seen in my life. It was Talib
I would
Kweli and
love.
The
I've never
Roots.
seen them, but I would love. Oh
You
my
got to
gosh!
go. They
I
played for
will.
2.5 hours
I've heard they go
without
long.
stopping. They didn't stop. There was I reckon a 30-second break and the crowd just went nuts. And that was it. The rest of the time they were playing. Like it was astounding. No breaks. Not even
Mm,
between songs. It was like a continuous, I've never seen anything like it.
So
Really remarkable.
I can't define that version of connection that we experience when we're in
Right?
that moment, but it is so profound, and you know it when it's there, and you know it when it's not there. I saw a band
Yes.
who I would have been. I'm not going to say with their name because I
Okay.
don't want to offend anybody.
Fair enough.
I had one. This was one of my bucket items. Like I
Mm,
was so stoked to see this band.
yeah, cool.
One small problem: they sucked.
Mm, I've had that
They
experience
decided
too.
they were one of these bands who decided to say, hey, listen, I know we've been around for a long time. We're going to show you how relevant we are. We're going to play all of our new stuff and very few of our old songs that you love,
Oh,
which is not the move from where I
sometimes
sit.
it's
I
not
understand.
fun.
Yeah, so their newer stuff was good, but not
Mm,
so epic. Their older stuff was epic, and
yeah.
they just did not lean on that at all. I would say less than a third of the songs were the
Yeah.
ones that people in when I say they have
Yeah.
a massive catalog, I mean they have a massive catalog. Um,
And that
so
happens
it's
sometimes, right? And I think that thing you touched on, like when you said, I can't explain it, there's this thing, we know it's there when we know it's not there, but we can't explain it. That, which in Native American kind of culture is the great mystery.
entirely.
I love referencing the great mystery and I love those words. Those words were taught to me by a friend of mine who was adopted as a medicine woman and now lives in New Mexico. She's a remarkable woman. Shout out, Josephine. And
Mm,
she gave me those words when she was teaching me about, the grandfather, grandmother, great mystery, that way of looking at the world. And it's such a beautiful way to acknowledge that not
mm,
everything needs to be explained. Like we have to accept, if we want to live this full life full of connection, we also must accept that not everything is explainable and not everything needs to be explained or labeled or, understood rationally, right?
absolutely. So I don't aim to explain things in this
Yeah.
book, but I do aim to help people find what I believe is the precursor to everything we want, and that is
Mm,
connection. What now? Here's an
beautiful.
interesting fact. If you look through the diagnosis Bible used by mental health practitioners, it's
Mhm.
known as the DSM, Diagnostic and
Yeah, I
Statistical
know it well.
Manual that we all know well. It describes the criteria for
I'm not allowed to use it, but I know what you're talking about.
whereas I must use it.
Mm,
I'm grateful, by the way, to the American Psychiatric Association for creating
mm. Incredible document.
this incredible document. If you look at virtually any diagnosis, let's start with depression. It
Okay.
has one of the characteristics is disconnecting. We disconnect from the
Yes.
present because we're focused on the past. We're ruminating. We're bad tripping on the past.
Yes.
How about anxiety? We're future tripping. We're
Yeah.
catastrophizing, perhaps. That's one of the features of anxiety, this kind of disconnection with the present because we're focused on the future and worried.
Yeah.
Mark Twain once said, I've lived through thousands of catastrophes, most of which never happened. And that's anxiety right at the
That's
core.
so great. Yeah.
How about trauma? One of the key features is dissociation or
Mm,
depersonalization, where we
mhm.
are hard to have trouble believing we are even ourselves in that moment. in
Yeah.
certain ways.
Yeah.
How about psychosis? It's a break from reality itself.
Disconnection from reality. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
right. So when you think about it, if at the core of everything we don't want
Mm.
is disconnection, connection is at the core of virtually everything we do want. Of course, we need to disconnect from time to time. Like, let's say I'm giving
Yeah.
blood and somebody's going to jam a needle into my arm. I want to look away.
There's a functional element to that. And also like I'm thinking of my son who has some anxiety, you know, and I'm thinking about the way that sometimes we sit, we connect, and he just starts to obsess and he goes further and further into a big feeling, and it can be super overwhelming for him. And at that moment, sometimes it's actually about helping him disconnect for a moment in order to weather that storm. You know, so it's like there's no hard and
100%.
fast, right?
So as a short-term coping strategy, it's a very important thing to be able to
Absolutely.
use from time to time. But it's when we live that way for years, and
That's
then
right.
the
Yeah.
dash between our birth date and our death date becomes akin to what uh, James Joyce referred to when he described Mr. Duffy, who lived a short distance from his body.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I read that line, Mr. Duffy lived a short distance from. I've spent much time in that way. So
Yes.
I
It's
I
fascinating.
want to be more connected. I want to help people become more connected.
Yes.
It's something I do in my practice, of course,
Sure.
and it's something that I'm hoping that my readers will take away from this book.
Yeah. Oh, we've had such a wide-ranging conversation. I've loved talking with you. I could talk to you for at least another hour.
Oh,
Um,
thanks,
I
Alina.
can't believe it's been an hour, as you said, as you rightly predicted. So, talk to me about next steps for people who want to find you and get in touch with what you're doing and connect with the book, and tell me that.
Well, first of all, it would be an honor to give a keynote in Australia. That's one of my biggest things that
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of keynotes and I love doing those. Sydney, Melbourne,
Wow.
Adelaide. I want to. I'll go anywhere.
It's a pretty cool
So
place. You better
I
stop in for a coffee if you are doing that.
cannot wait, and I cannot wait to try a Vegemite in its home territory. Uh, but that being said, dradamdorsay.com is my website. That's DRADAMDORSAY.com.
Thank you.
Easily findable on Apple Podcasts for and Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. My TED Talks are easily found on YouTube. And the book, of course, is available at Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
Amazing. And it's such a privilege to meet you, Adam, and to spend
Aw.
this time with you and connect with you.
Right back at you, Elena.
And I'm looking forward to staying connected in the future and keeping track of all that you're doing. And there's such a beautiful synergy. It's just so lovely to talk to someone that speaks the language of connection. It's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Right back at you.
Thank you. And we'll see you hopefully again for part 2.
I would look forward to that.
Thanks, Adam. Bye.
Thanks, Elena.
Thank you for being here with us on Unboxable. My hope is that today's episode gave you a moment of insight, peace, or connection to carry into the rest of your week. If it did, please share the show with someone you love or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you're ready for deeper support and a place to sustain your growth, you can join me inside the Lime Life Method at elenaturley.com/join, or find other resources, both free and paid, in the show notes. As you go through your week, remember that the things that separate you from yourself or from others or from nature are not nearly as powerful as the things that connect you. Until next time, go gently, my friends.